On this Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the civil rights icon's legacy is front and center as the battle over voting rights grows in the nation's capital. The House passed the John Lewis voting rights bill last week, but it faces two major roadblocks in the Senate: Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has promised to vote on the bill later this week. Ahead of this vote, activists, including some of King's family, are using today to channel MLK Jr. in hopes of convincing the Senate to pass the bill. NBC News reporter Gary Grumbach joins us from D.C. Hi, Gary. Good morning. So activists will march through D.C. later this morning. So tell us about their plans and the message today.
Good morning, Savannah. Yeah, what do they want? Voting rights. When do they want it? Well, ideally, they'd like it right now. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is seen widely as a day off for many people. Banks are closed. Schools are closed. The stock market is closed. But activists and organizers here that are going to be marching today say it's a day on for them. And in that spirit, they're going to be marching across this bridge. This is the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge here in Washington. And it's not really a march on Washington that they're doing today. It's more of a march in Washington and through Washington. They're going to be marching across this bridge onto Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and to a street aptly named Good Hope Road. And it's all in the name of voting rights. They want the bill that passed the House this past week to pass the Senate and to get to President Biden's desk. Now, what is in this bill? Broadly speaking, it's a national infrastructure to create a regular a national standard for how elections are run. It's also striking down hurdles in the name of election security and really reducing the influence of big money in politics. But of course, none of this can happen without the support of the White House and without the support of everybody in Congress when it comes to the Democratic side. But there are two roadblocks, as we mentioned: Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Senator Joe Manchin. Savannah?
So, Gary, let's talk a little bit more about that, because members of the King family were actually in Arizona. That's, of course, home of Senator Kyrsten Sinema this weekend, rallying for voting rights. So what's their message to her specifically, to Senator Sinema, especially coming after she spoke against the filibuster? And that's something that would help pass this bill, of course, only if all Democrats are on board. But what is their message here?
Yeah, this is not something that's just happening in Washington. The activists have been across the country this weekend, really making it clear they want voting rights done now, and they want to get it done as quickly as possible, especially as we come across this Martin Luther King Jr. Day. But none of it can happen without every Democratic vote because of the slim margins in the Senate. And so, as we've seen on a number of issues over the past year, they need everybody. But Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are really the roadblocks in all of this because of their stance on the filibuster change. Here's what Martin Luther King III had to say in a message to Kyrsten Sinema.
I was just greatly disappointed that you stand in the way and have the gall to not realize that what is being done in all of these states, it's about the filibuster, and yet every last one of these states that have passed these regressive laws have done it with all Republican legislators, not bipartisan. So that to me seems to be not a sufficient argument.
Now, a silver lining here, at least we know where Senator Kyrsten Sinema stands on this issue. In the past, she has only communicated with President Biden and with President Biden's staff, leaving some of her own colleagues to be unsure where she stands on some issues. Savannah?
Now, Gary, the Senate is back in session tomorrow to focus on voting rights, but at this point, it's unlikely to pass without the support of these two senators. If it were to not pass, what happens next in the fight for voting rights?
Yeah, well, if it doesn't, this is just yet another big blow for the Biden agenda. This was something that President Biden campaigned on, and he really made a promise to communities, especially the diverse communities that really helped put him over the top in the primary, saying, I will get voting rights done for you. And if he doesn't, that's a real problem for his future in terms of his political career here. But in terms of the activists and the organizers on the ground, the fight really continues. This is not something they have an appetite for giving up anytime soon. Here's what one representative had to say.
Clearly, we can also go back to the drawing table and revise those bills, but I'm not going to give up on this. Since 2013, I have introduced this bill in 4 successive Congresses. This is the first time I've done so without John Lewis. But I think that we have to invoke not only his memory, his legacy. So many of these senators walked across that bridge with John in my hometown, commemorating the events of Bloody Sunday. Now they have an opportunity to write their own history.
And organizers say that history can start this week, even tomorrow, if the Senate passes that John Lewis voting rights bill. Savannah?
All right, Gary Grumbach, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.